Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the virtual program today, Making the Ask with Anthony Terling. I'm Brittany Spillman, and I serve as the Cary Center Director of Community and Collegiate Programs. Before we begin, I would like to, sorry, my screen disappeared. There we go. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank this year's Community and Collegiate Program sponsors who have pledged to support our efforts in providing meaningful programming for the nonprofit sector. Thank you to Auburn University Outreach, the Community Foundation of East Alabama, the United Way of Central Alabama, the River Region United Way, KPMG, Auburn University Outreach Office of Public Service, the Drummond Thorne Stooks Fund for Excellence, and a community service grant made possible by State Senator Randy Price and State Representative Joe Lovern. Anthony was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama. He received his bachelor's degree in sports management from Auburn University Montgomery and continued on to get a master's in the same field of study. Anthony works at Auburn-Opelika Tourism as the sports and event development manager. He has over 13 years of experience in the sports industry. Before joining Auburn-Opelika Tourism in 2018, Terling served as the Vice President of External Affairs for the Alabama Sports Festival Foundation, a nonprofit organization responsible for producing the Alabama State Games, and worked for the Tampa Bay Rays and their minor league affiliate. Anthony values family time and being a great husband to Lindsay and father to his two sons. Charitable work and helping others in need is a passion for Anthony, as he and his wife co-founded a nonprofit, Austin First Foundation, that raises awareness and research funding for rare diseases. He is a member of the Opelika Kiwanis Club, a volunteer for many things in the community, and currently serves as the board and executive committee member for the Achievement Center, Easter Seals, and Opelika. The Achievement Center provides services for those with disabilities in many of the East Alabama and West Georgia counties. Please welcome Anthony.
Thank you, Brittany. I'm so excited to be here with everybody. Thank you, Brittany and the team, for asking me. I'm humbled and honored to be here today, and especially with a lot of great professionals across the state that I love and appreciate what you do, whether it's the charity work you do or obviously the foundations or the nonprofits that you represent. And obviously we all have a very similar goal of raising money for good causes. And obviously sales is not something that comes easy. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll just jump right into it. And I want this to be a very, open conversation, engaging. If you want to ask questions, please interject. I know Brittany will be monitoring the chat, and she'll send those or talk to me about that. So please feel free. At the end, we can do some Q&As, but if you want to interject in the middle, please, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Love engaging conversation. So we'll go ahead and get started. And so, as Brittany said, the title is Making the Ask. And so it's one thing that is tough to make an ask, even though you have the intention and the understanding and a passion for your product or for your cause. Making the actual ask can be challenging and intimidating sometimes. And it doesn't matter if you're in your profession for one day or 20, 30, 40 years. It's always a challenging thing to do, but it also is very rewarding. So sales is, in my opinion, and I know there's a lot of debate when you read different articles and different studies and things as far as what sales is supposed to be. A lot of these are my personal opinions, but also rooted in people that I've learned from that have raised lots of money for various organizations and also for profit, but mainly nonprofit. My entire career has been nonprofit work. Sales is supposed to be authentic. I personally, in a very, when people provide feedback on who I am as a person and as a professional, I have constantly heard the word authentic. And it is one of those things I'm very proud of because I'm very personal and authentic in the way I am as a person and as a professional. Customers expect it and deserve it. I think we all have seen whether we're being sold to donate money to a foundation or to buy a product of any type, every day has some type of sales activity in it. Whether we know it or not. And so I think we all can put ourselves in those shoes of being a customer. And I think being authentic is something that we all would want. But it is hard. Each person is different. As me and Brittany were talking about before we jumped on, every customer or every client or donor or prospect have different triggers that cause them to donate or buy. Sometimes it can take years, sometimes it can take minutes. And sometimes, as a salesperson or a fundraiser, you're like, man, I've mentioned that to them, or I've said those things to them, and what made them choose to buy or donate or act now? You just never know. And I think some of the things in these next few bullet points are very important to just keep in mind. And as I go through these things, just try to think of examples of experiences you've had that have come from these bullet points. So, obviously people want to work with people that are trustworthy and credible. So build trust and credibility with either somebody you've had an existing relationship with, or a brand new prospect that you just met 5 seconds ago, or that you're maybe trying to cold call or email and get a conversation set up with. Stand out from the crowd. I think that any opportunity to be memorable, whether it's a group of people that you are always around, or it's, say, a group of people that you may see once every year, or maybe 3 or 4 times a year. In the work I do for Auburn-Opelika Tourism, I travel about 6 to 8 times a year, and I typically see the same people. Sometimes these are conferences with 1,000 attendees, and sometimes there's 200 attendees. But imagine when you're with 1,000 attendees and there's a potentially 500 to 600 prospects that you could be getting to know, that could be potential clients or donors in the future for your cause. Stand out from the crowd. Some of those small things can be your personality. Some things can be what you wear. People always say to me when I go to conferences, if people know me, they know I love hats. Here's one thing that I learned: people don't recognize me without a hat. It's very weird. So for me to stand out, I have to think very detailed about, well, if they know me wearing a hat, but if I also am in a business professional setting like this, I'm in sports. So let's just say it. We wear hats, we wear athletic gear. But if I walk in with something like this, I've literally had people say, I didn't recognize you, Anthony. So I take that moment to remember, hey, whatever can help me stand out, whether it's, if you like loud colors, bright colors, wear those. But you always can remember that person that you were in a meeting with or in a networking opportunity with. And just think of those times that you're like, I remember that person because of blank. That's part of standing out from the crowd. I think one thing people, and I teach, I adjunct in college, and I did a class one time, and these are anywhere from your 18 to 23-year-olds. It was a grad student class, so a little older. And I said, you're a brand. Every day you are a brand. My granddad used to tell me all the time, you got one name, son, and that's Terling, and you can't mess it up. And so imagine if you do something that is not good for your life, or you make a bad decision. He said, just remember, your name is who you are and what they remember. So I look at that as a brand. And it's not business. I treat it just like personal, but I want who I am at home and who I am out in work to be the same. Doesn't matter. So I think standing out from the crowd is a very consistent thing, because it's a very competitive business and market that we're in. I mean, raising money there's a lot of charities just in Lee County alone, not to mention Alabama. And so we all have great causes, but there's also there's only so much money to go around as far as charitable dollars. Be consistent. I've talked about some of that in some of what I've just mentioned, but be consistent. I think small things matter. I know that if it's showing up on time, if it means telling somebody that, hey, I'm going to do the smallest little thing, and you've put a big proposal together, but that small little thing matters to them, that's just being consistent. I think people know, and they start building that trust and credibility with that person when there's consistency. It doesn't mean anybody's going to be perfect, but I think consistency matters in everything that you do. Adapt your approach. We've all had, our elevator pitches, our spills, whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of the joke when you get the sales marketing call for somebody that's reading a script, and you ask a question or you throw them off and they can't adapt because they're just set to one style. I think learn to adapt, whether it's adapt in how you speak about something, how you sell your cause, the options that you give them. So I think being adaptable is very key because you never know what setting you're gonna be in, even if it's a setting that you're not comfortable with. I think adapting your approach is a very key thing. Build genuine connections. That goes back to being authentic. I think building genuine connections and that last one on the screen, create long-term relationships, are going to make the long game, as the next slide will say, which I say the long game, which is just the bigger picture. Those things that are right in front of us, those opportunities that are right in front of us, yes, those are great, but we all know we want loyal donors, loyal sponsors, loyal contributors, loyal followers of whatever we are doing. Yes, those one-time opportunities or those quote one-time sales or donations are great, but we all know we're trying to build on that, and I think being genuine and creating those long-term relationships matter. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. For me, it's being personal, as I mentioned at the beginning. Single transactions, as I just mentioned, those are great, but they don't build long-term success, and they also don't build long-term growth for your cause, your foundation, or whatever you are representing. So play the long game, look beyond the smaller opportunity now, because you never know when that bigger opportunity is going to come because it hasn't presented itself yet. I thought this was a very interesting quote from Richard Branson. He must live in an area with a lot of bus transportation, but just think of the opportunities that we have every day to make a sale, to get a donation, to create a new partner, and whatever you're trying to do. Business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. Me personally, in the last 6 weeks, in the job I do here at AO Tourism, there's a lot of factors that go into us bringing events, and me specifically at sports. Weather can affect the events that we bring, dates of availability for facilities, and my team or my coworkers know the last 6 weeks have been rough as far as events being canceled because of rain or things not working out. But at the end of the day, I know there's always another opportunity coming. All right, now I'm going to show, I love TED Talks. My CEO, Robin Bridges at AO Tourism, loves TED Talks. I think they're awesome. This is a unique one, and it's a little longer, but it is basically about rejection. In what we all do on a daily basis, we have a lot of passion for it. We have a lot of energy for it. But at the end of the day, we're going to be told no a lot. And we're going to be told maybe later, but at the end of the day, I believe no is just not now. So this individual goes through a lot of unique examples. They're very simple, but just try to put yourself in your shoes and the experiences you had when you're listening to him speak about rejection.
When I was 6-year-old, I received my gifts. My first grade teacher had this brilliant idea. She wanted us to experience receiving gifts, but also learning the virtue of complimenting each other. So she had all of us come to the front of the classroom, and she bought all of us gifts and stacked them in the corner. And she said, why don't we just stand here and compliment each other? If you hear your name called, go and pick up your gifts and sit down. What a wonderful idea, right? What could go wrong? Well, there were 40 of us to start with, and every time when I hear someone's name called, I would give out the heartiest cheer. And then there were 20 people left, and 10 people left, and 5 left, and 3 left. I was one of them. And the compliments stopped. Well, at that moment, I was crying, and the teacher was freaking out. And she was like, hey, would anyone say anything nice about these people? No one? Okay, why don't you go get your gift and sit down? So behave next year. Someone might say something nice about you. Well, as I'm describing this to you, you probably know I remember this really well. But I don't know who felt worse that day. Was that me or the teacher? She must have realized that she turned a team building event into a public roast for 3 6-year-olds. And without the humor, when you see people get roasted on TV, it was funny. There was nothing funny about that day. So that was one version of me, and I would die to avoid being in that situation again, to get rejected in public again. That's one version. Then fast forward 8 years, Bill Gates came to my hometown, Beijing, China, to speak, and I saw his message. I fell in love with that guy. I thought, wow, I know what I want to do now. That night, I wrote a letter to my family telling them by age 25, I will build the biggest company in the world, and that company will buy Microsoft. I totally embraced this idea of conquering the world, domination, right? And I didn't make this up. I did write a letter, and here it is. No, you don't have to read this through, and this is also bad handwriting, but I did highlight some keywords. You get the idea. So that was another version of me wanting to conquer the world. Well, then 2 years later, I was presented with the opportunity to come to the United States. I jumped on it. And because that was where Bill Gates lived, right? So I thought that was the start of my entrepreneur journey. Then fast forward another 14 years, I was 30. Nope, I didn't build that company. I didn't even start. I was actually a marketing manager for a Fortune 500 company. And I felt I was stuck. I was stagnant. Why is that? Where is that 14-year-old who wrote that letter? It's not because he didn't try. It's because every time I had a new idea, every time I wanted to try something new, even at work, I wanted to make a proposal. I wanted to speak up in front of people in a group. Still, there was this constant battle between the 14-year-old and the 6-year-old. One wanted to conquer the world, make a difference. Another was afraid of rejection. And every time, that 6-year-old won. And this fear even persisted after I started my own company. I mean, I started my own company when I was 30. If you want to be Bill Gates, you got to start sooner or later, right? When I was an entrepreneur, I was presented with an investment opportunity. And then I was turned down. And that rejection hurt me. It hurt me so bad that I wanted to quit right there. But then I thought, hey, would Bill Gates quit after a simple investment rejection? Would any successful entrepreneur quit like that? No way. And this is where it clicked for me. Okay, I can build a better company. I can build a better team or better product. But one thing for sure, I could be a better leader. I could be a better person. I cannot let that 6-year-old keep dictating my life anymore. I have to put him back to his place. So this is where I went online and looked for help. Google was my friend. I searched, how do I overcome the fear of rejection? I came up with a bunch of psychology articles about where the fear and pain are coming from. Then I came up with a bunch of rah-rah inspirational articles about don't take it personally, just overcome it. Who doesn't know that? But why was I still so scared? Then I found this website by luck. It's called rejectiontherapy.com. Rejection therapy was this game invented by this Canadian entrepreneur. His name is Jason Comley. And it's basically the idea is for 30 days, you go out and look for rejection. And every day get rejected at something. And by the end, you desensitize yourself from the pain. And I love that idea. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I'll film myself getting rejected 100 days. And I came up with my own rejection ideas, and I'll make a video blog out of it. And so here's what I did. This is what the blog looked like. Day one, borrow $100 from stranger. So this is where I went to where I was working. I came downstairs and saw this big guy sitting behind the desk. He looked like a security guard. So I just approached him, and I was just walking, and that was the longest walk in my life. I just hair at the back of my neck standing up. I was sweating, and my heart was pounding. And I got there and said, hey, sir, can I borrow $100 from you? And he looked up, he's like, no. Why? And I said, no, I'm sorry. Then I turned around and just ran. I felt so embarrassed. But because I filmed myself, so that night I was watching myself getting rejected. I just saw how scared I was. I looked like this kid in Sixth Sense. I saw dead people. But then I saw this guy. He wasn't that menacing. He was chubby, lovable guy. And he even asked me why. In fact, he invited me to explain myself. And I could have said many things. I could have explained. I could have negotiated. I didn't do any of that. All I did was run. I felt, wow, this is like a microcosm of my life. Every time I feel the slightest rejection, I would just run as fast as I could. And you know what? The next day, no matter what happens, I'm not gonna run. I'll stay engaged. Day 2, request a burger refill. That's where I finished, went to a burger joint, I finished lunch, and I went to the cashier and said, hey, can I get a burger refill? And he was all confused. I was like, what's a burger refill? I said, well, just like a drink refill, but what's a burger? And he said, sorry, we don't do burger refill, man. So this is where rejection happened. I put up run, but I stayed. I said, well, I love your burger. I love your joint. And if you guys do a burger refill, I would love you guys more. And he said, well, okay, I'll tell my manager about it. But maybe we'll do it, but sorry, we can't do this today. Then I left. And by the way, I don't think they ever done burger refill. I think they're still there. But the life and death feeling I was feeling the first time was no longer there, just because I stayed engaged, because I didn't run. I said, wow, great, I'm already learning things. Great. And then day 3, getting Olympic donuts. This is where my life was turned upside down. I went to a Krispy Kreme. It's a donut shop mainly in the southeastern part of the United States. I'm sure they have some here too. And I went in and said, can you make me donuts that look like Olympic symbols? Basically, you interlink 5 donuts together. I mean, there's no way they could say yes, right? The donut maker took me so seriously. So she put out paper, started jotting down colors and rings. It's like, how could they make this? And then 15 minutes later, she came out with a box that looked like Olympic rings. And I was so touched. And I just couldn't believe it. And that video got over 5 million views on YouTube. The world couldn't believe that either. And because of that, I was on in newspapers and talk shows and everything, and I became famous. A lot of people started writing emails to me and saying, what you're doing is awesome. But fame and notoriety did not do anything to me. What I really want to do was learn and to change myself. So I turned the rest of my 100 days of rejection into this playground, into this research project. I wanted to learn, see what I can learn. And then I learned a lot of things. I discovered so many secrets. For example, I found if I just don't run, if I got rejected, I could actually turn a no into a yes. And the magic word is why. So one day I went to a stranger's house, I had this flower in my hand, and I said, knocked on the door, said, hey, can I plant this flower in your backyard? And he said, no. But before he could leave, I said, hey, can I know why? And he said, well, I have this dog that would dig up anything I put in the backyard. I don't want to waste your flower. If you don't do this, go across the street and talk to Connie. She loves flowers. So that's what I did. I went across and knocked on Connie's door, and she was so happy to see me. And then half an hour later, there's this flower in Connie's backyard. I'm sure it looks better now. But had I left after the initial rejection, I would have thought, well, it's because the guy didn't trust me. It's because I was crazy, because I didn't dress up well, I didn't look good. It was none of those. It was because what I offered did not fit what he wanted. And he trusted me enough to offer me a referral, using sales term. I converted that referral. Then one day, I also learned that I can actually say certain things and maximize my chance to get a yes. So for example, one day I went to a Starbucks and asked the manager, hey, can I be a Starbucks greeter? He's like, what's a Starbucks greeter? I said, do you know those Walmart greeters? Those people who say hi to you before you walk in the store and make sure you don't steal stuff, basically. And I want to give a Walmart experience to Starbucks customers. Well, I'm not sure that's a good thing, actually. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's a bad thing. And he was like, oh, Oh yeah, this is how he looked. His name is Eric. He's like, I'm not sure. This is how he was hearing me. I'm not sure. Then I asked him, is that weird? He's like, yeah, it's really weird, man. But as soon as he said that, his whole demeanor changed. It's as if he's putting all the doubt on the floor. And he said, yeah, you can do this, and just don't get too weird. So for the next hour, I was the Starbucks greeter. I said hi to every customer that walked in and gave them holiday cheers. By the way, I don't know what your career trajectory is. Don't be a greeter. It was really boring. But then I found I could do this because I mentioned, is that weird? I mentioned a doubt that he was having. And because I mentioned, is that weird? That means I wasn't weird. That means I was actually thinking just like him, seeing this as a weird thing. And again, I learned that if I mention some doubt people might have before I ask the question, people, I gain their trust. People will more likely to say yes to me. And then I learned I could fulfill my life dream by asking. You know, I came from 4 generations of teachers. And my grandma has always told me, hey, Jia, you can do anything you want, but it'd be great if you become a teacher. But I want to be an entrepreneur, so I didn't. But it has always been my dream to actually teach something. So I said, what if I just ask and teach a college class? So I lived in Austin at the time, so I went to University of Texas in Austin, knock on professors' doors and said, can I teach your class? I didn't get anywhere the first couple times, but because I didn't run, I kept doing it. And on the third try, the professor was very impressed. It's like, no one has done this before. And I came in prepared with the PowerPoints and my lesson. It's like, well, I can use this. Well, when you come back in 2 months, I'll fit you in my curriculum. And 2 months later, I was teaching a class. This is me. You probably can't see this bad picture. You know, sometimes you get rejected by lighting, you know. But when I finished teaching that class, I walked out crying because I thought I could just fulfill my life dream just by simply asking. I used to think I have to accomplish all these things, have to be a great entrepreneur or learn, get a PhD to teach. But no, I just asked and I could teach. And in that picture, which you can see, I quoted Martin Luther King Jr. Why? Because in my research, I found the people who really changed the world, who changed the way we live and the way we think, are the people who were met with initial and often violent rejections. People like Martin Luther King Jr., like Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, or even Jesus Christ. These people did not let rejection define them. They let their own reaction after rejection define themselves. And they embrace rejection. And we don't have to be those people to learn about rejection. And in my case, rejection was my curse, was my boogeyman. It has bothered me my whole life because I was running away from it. Then I started embracing it. I turned that into the biggest gift in my life. I started teaching people how to turn rejections into opportunities. I used my blog, I used my talk, I used the book I just published, and I'm even building technology to help people overcome their fear of rejection. When you get rejected in life, when you are facing the next obstacle or next failure, consider the possibilities. Don't run. If you just embrace them, they might become your gifts as well. Thank you.
All right. So that obviously had some good comic relief in it, but had a lot of great, to me, spoke about what the topic is, making the ask. And I think we all go through many rejections, and even with some opportunities, we get a lot of no's before we finally get that yes. And I think one of the big things that I took away from that was ask why, or know their why. And I think, you know, you hear many motivating speakers and different walks of life and in different segments of business speak about knowing their why, but obviously you have to know your why. And sometimes that is what you are raising money for, the foundation or the nonprofit, the charity that you are representing or raising money for. And so obviously knowing that why first and helping to know your why will then make you, and I think perspective and a mindset is key when you're not thinking about, hey, what do I get out of this? What does the charity or the organization that I represent get out of this? Would I love for the charity that my wife and I co-founded to have endless resources, endless money? Because as we all know in nonprofit, as my old boss mentor used to say, there's a big old black hole when it comes to nonprofits, and that's where the money is. Whether there's either no money or you're trying to fill that hole with the money that you need to do those great things that those charities do. So I think there was some really good information in that presentation. So I think, one of the things we all strive to do is to get the door open. I know there's a lot of people probably on the call and in every situation you're in that you see, if I can just get that door open, if that means getting in front of the potential donor, the client, the thing that's going to either help us or change the landscape of our foundation or our charity forever, um, just get us in that door, whatever that door is. And so sometimes it's hard. And Brittany, if you'll look, and people are welcome to unmute themselves. I'm interested in this one as personal, but also professional. So you can either type in the chat your preferred method of communication when prospecting for new sales or new donations. Or you can unmute yourself and just say, email, phone calls, in person, whatever. I'm very curious to see what people prefer. So put yourself in your own shoes of saying, when you go prospect somebody, or if you're being prospected, how do you prefer the method of communication to start?
I'll go ahead and start. I love emails. Just with as busy and so many things that are constantly going on, it's easy to fire off an email and somebody can respond to it on their own time, and vice versa. I'm not always at my phone, so I can't always take those phone calls, but I can read an email and respond in due time. Anybody else? All right. We have one that says email or text. Anthony, how do you feel about text messages and trying to open that door?
So that's funny. That's on the next slide. I was hoping that, because I'm always interested, and it'd be curious to know age demographic, as far as, because there's so many methods of communication. I mean, my dad was a technology director for the state for public safety, and we all can probably remember when there were no iPhones, there was no Facebook. Even before MySpace. So all these methods of communication, now you got GroupMe, you got Discord, you got every little bit of thing, Chat GPT, whatever the AI stuff is. I personally am very traditional, and my 6-year-old even says, "Dad, you're always on the phone." I love a human connection. I love going to sit down for coffee. I don't care if I've never met the person in my life. I'm having that opportunity here soon. Never met this lady, and I'm going to go meet her for lunch. I am just that. And I'll talk about this. Put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. I had a lot of great mentors, and one of them being my dad, that would always push me to be uncomfortable, because then it makes you comfortable when you're in those settings. I'm really an introvert. As much as people say, oh, your personality, you're very authentic, you're personable. When I go to my conferences or locally for networking, you don't see me out a lot on the social after hours stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. But at the end of the day, I also know how important those connections and touch points are to perspective, whether it's me and my job at tourism or the charity work that I do with a lot of different groups, including the one me and my wife co-founded. So I personally like a good phone call, but I'm with you, Brittany. And then also, I think it goes back to organization. It's also what helps you stay organized. That's why I'm on this next slide, you'll see what my personal preference to not do. Doesn't mean you can't do it. But I do like a phone call, but email is also my preferred method because it's easy to organize.
Katie mentioned that she likes to do handwritten letters. Joycelyn said emails or social media, or Amy said email and in person. And Axel likes to build out a prospecting campaign that includes email, phone, a follow-up, LinkedIn, and just follow up in a few months, kind of thing.
Oh, you want to talk about wanting to know more about that? I'm very curious. That's somebody's got some marketing advertising background to throw a campaign together. But that's awesome. And look, it's what fits your preference, but I feel more importantly, the preference of the person you're trying to prospect. Now, if you don't know the person, you obviously don't know their preferred method. But I think a genuine way to be personal with somebody is to ask. Once you do have that connection with them, where you just met them or you're communicating with them in whatever method it is, of, hey, what is your preferred method? We have so many tools now, whether it's our CRM systems, our cell phones have all these things now where you can save birthdays, you can save, hey, their preferred method of communication. I know I use a big one for work called Simple View. It's a very big tourism related CRM system. If people don't know CRM, customer retention management, hey, some people love spreadsheets, and I am personally like that, but we are pushed to do the Simple View. But there are things in there, their spouse names, their preferred method of contact. So I think at the end of the day, it's what meets your needs, but also the prospective client's needs. Here's my personal opinion on opening a conversation. I personally do not prefer to open a conversation with a prospect by texting or messaging them on social media, except for LinkedIn, because right now LinkedIn is probably one of their safer professional networks that you don't get all the spam, the stuff you don't trust. Even though I think if a lot of people on here are active users on LinkedIn, I am one. That's starting to change a lot. So sometimes you can't, like, I've got a client that I personally know, have met many, many times, and I'm working on securing a deal with, and she reaches out to me through Facebook Messenger. And it was really awkward because she always texts me, emails me, and calls me. And I'll be honest, I think it's spam. So again, it goes back to the world we live in with so many ways to communicate. Sometimes it's just like at the end of the slide, creating doubt. But in some cases, I work with a lot of college clubs. So all your club sports on campus at Auburn University. For many years, I've been in the sports business for 13 years. I used to deal with every single club sport in this state if they had a club, which means it's student driven. So how do students want to be communicated with? Probably social media, not texting. I have 22-year-old niece, a 18-year-old niece, and every age in between, niece and nephew, and all of them communicate in a different way because they're all in different generations. So in some cases, scenarios, I do use these forms of communication. I've had success in particular with club sports where I email them, I call them, but once I hit them up on, I don't do Instagram, but let's say Twitter or Facebook, they respond. So, hey, at the end of the day, whatever it gets the success there as far as opening the door, do it. I think from an email perspective, I think I would say most people probably do a lot of emailing when it comes to whether it's opening a door or actually making the ask. I think to prospective customers / donors, I think you need to try and establish a meeting, or to establish a meeting or call with them. Just be short, informative / impactful, personal, and direct. And some of those examples can be, we all know it's hard to be concise in an email. Some of us are better than others. I choose to reread and look over my email multiple times to try to take out those redundant words or things that, or adjectives. Don't be too, it's like if you've ever looked at Chat GPT and asked it to write something for you, it can be very over the top. And so we were just talking about that in our office. It's like, that's not how I speak, and people that establish a connection with you know how you are. So I think being short, concise, but informative, impactful. And I think the impactful part and the informative part are whatever it is that's impactful for your message, your cause. So I'll give you an example. The foundation that Brittany mentioned that my wife and I co-founded in honor or in memory of our oldest son, it's about rare disease. Many people don't know about rare disease. Many people don't know that all childhood pediatric cancers, all of them are rare diseases. That can be mind-blowing to a lot of people, but it is, unfortunately. And most people don't know this impactful statement. It's very short. 1 in 10 Americans live with a rare disease. I can tell you how many times I've used that or not used that yet. And when I do use it, people are like, whoa. And that starts a conversation. It starts an organic conversation, which then leads to more and more good information and questions. And you'll see later in the slides that getting a prospective client or customer or donor to ask you questions, That's when you know you're starting to get somewhere with them. As whether it's a good saying or not, the hook is being set. I like to fish, so I'll use a little pun there. So limit the number of attachments and links you include, because unfortunately in our world of spam and phishing and not literally phishing, but the other version of it, a lot of times your emails don't get there. People won't open them. They won't click on things. It's a proven thing that attachments have viruses. And so these are just small little things that can help create no doubt. And it does not create the doubt in someone's mind, because if they haven't met you, or if they've only met you once, there is no trust and credibility built yet. Obviously, don't be pushy. Give people time to respond. I used to have two particular bosses. I worked for a full service marketing company for a very short time. And I had one saying, why are you being, why aren't you asking? Why aren't you asking the sale yet? And he was very pushy. He was a bulldog salesman, as I say, or a salesperson. The other one was like, hey, take as much time that you need to meet with them and build a good relationship with them. So don't be afraid to follow up multiple times within a reasonable amount of time. Like the TED Talk said, if you don't ask why, or if you just run from the immediate no, you never know. According to multiple surveys, and I was shocked by this, it takes on average 8 touches to open a conversation or get a meeting with a prospect or lead. There's many of us that probably go the other way and go to something else if it took 8 touches, but just keep that in mind. Um, Prospecting, your network. And me and Brittany were talking about this before we jumped on. Many forget to establish relationships with key partners and even competitors in the same workspace. Yes, we're all nonprofits. Yes, we all have great causes. We're all after a lot of the same dollars. As they say, money doesn't grow on trees. But at the end of the day, you never know when establishing really genuine, trustworthy relationships with competitors, partners will provide you opportunities. And I know probably every one of you on the call can think of an example and an experience you've had where a competitor or a workspace. I used to have somebody joke that Cancer Society and Leukemia Society, they go after the same dollars. The mentor that taught me how to fundraise raised money for both of those. He said that was kind of unheard of to be on a board to chair fundraising for both, but both did very similar things, but still could get the needs met for those donors in different ways, all while doing fundraising for 2 good causes and 2 things that affect a lot of people in our world. Even though you can't do business directly with certain partners and competitors, as I said, they can certainly send you business that they can't take. In our industry of sports tourism, all over the country, if I have a relationship in Spokane, Washington, this is a real example, they can't host something. I have a relationship with them because I took the time to establish a conversation and also a relationship with someone that I see 4 times a year, and they've sent us business. So you just never know where those business opportunities will come from. Always have your elevator pitch ready. You never know when you'll have that opportunity to promote your product. I mean, literally being in an elevator, you never know when that person that you're either at a conference at, or maybe it's in your own building, or you're in a community somewhere. And it doesn't actually literally have to be an elevator, but just a mat. And we've probably been there. We're like, oh, I've been meeting to get with that person, or I'm actually meeting with that person. And it's maybe they ask you a question that catches you off guard, but just always be ready to have those impactful statements ready. Because I can't tell you, especially in the charity work that I do, that's not my daily job. So as I tell a lot of people, a lot of times it's on the weekends and after hours that I am spending doing those things. So I have literally been on the ball field coaching my 6-year-old when an opportunity presented itself, and I wasn't going to turn it down. So as I said, sometimes you get a brief moment to make a great first impression, or just to make a good impression in period. Know your audience or setting. As some salespeople or fundraisers, they never can quote turn it off. Know when and when not to sell, or when not to just to have a genuine conversation with people. Most of the time when you're prospecting a client or a donor, they know what you're there for. They know what you're asking. They know what you're eventually going to ask. And so to me, it goes back to the being authentic and personal. That to me builds that credibility and trust, which to me in my work has proven to be very successful over time. Try to be, as I said, personal with an in-person meeting or a Zoom opportunity. Zoom is a great opportunity. Even though you can't be in the room with them, you can still have that kind of genuine touch point, just like you're having coffee. Give a brief background of yourself. Don't do too much talking about yourself. You're there to talk about the cause and the product, but I've had many of situations where it makes a genuine greater connection when they realize one, who you are, whether it's about your family or where you're from, those kind of things. But then they also realize, wow, you have a connection to the cause or the charity that you're representing and why you're so passionate about asking for, whether it's $100 or $100,000 or somewhere in between. Ask a couple simple but personal questions. It doesn't mean that you're getting in their business. This allows you to log key facts about a person for later. We have a new person in our office that has no sales background, and I'm teaching and showing him while you're having a conversation, you're logging mental notes, or if you're on Zoom, you're making notes. They have 2 kids. They have, this spouse. They're from this place, because you never know what'll spark a very genuine and organic conversation. So sometimes it's just, hey, where are you from? It doesn't have to be too personal. Be efficient with their time they are giving you. Organically fill out the conversation if you feel you should move along to the reason you were meeting with them. Obviously, we all are very limited on time. Everybody's busy in their own right. And so it's hard when you're in those uncomfortable settings, or even if you're comfortable in that setting, to kind of realize like, hey, the personal conversation has kind of ended. Now let's move to the business conversation. For your product or your cause, create a compelling story behind your product that is impactful. Have a few of them. A lot of times when you talk as a nonprofit or a foundation, you can talk to, for us, it's talking to people that live with rare disease. We lived it with our child, but we also talked to other people that were like, whoa, can we tell that story? Because a lot of times, as we know, you can't walk in everybody's shoes. You can't be in the same shoe as another fundraiser to know the product that they're promoting or they're asking people to raise money for. So I think a compelling story again makes a true connection to something, because again, everyone can't know everything about what your cause is or experience it. And as we all know, when we give money to things, we're giving money to things that we know are tangible needs, but also more than likely we have some kind of experience or know somebody with an experience to that cause. Leave them wanting more. As the gentleman mentioned, the campaign for opening the door, that left me wanting more. If your product has hard-hitting facts that 1 in 10 Americans live with a rare disease, that's easy to picture. 1 in 10 people lining up, and that 1 out of 10 lives with some sort of rare disease. Use them to create desire to want more, because the desire inside eventually will end up in some type of support that you're looking for. Show visuals, obviously, when applicable. We're all very driven, as they used to say, photos are worth 1,000 words. Well, video and photos or video is worth a lot more. So just be very visual and impactful, but also short and concise. We all have very little attention span these days because of the technology and other things that are going on. But anytime you can show visuals with impactful statements or testimonials. I recently watched a video from Baby Steps here in Auburn University, and it's amazing organization that needs a lot of funding and resources to help moms going through college while they are delivering a child or have a child. And they showed a very impactful video because they had real moms with their kids and their families as testimonials. You better believe that's going to get a lot of support. Be adaptable with your options, as we mentioned earlier. Depending on what you're offering the prospect, you want to be simple and adaptable with your proposal. One of the worst things that we've all sat on the other side of the table being asked to either donate something or sign on the dotted line for whatever proposal. Just give them options that fit their wants and needs. When you've done the work to figure out what their why is, what they like, what they want to get out of it, it's great to have a menu per se of options. But then a lot of people, if it's simple, donate $1,000, $100, $10. What if somebody wanted to donate more? They may not know that they can do that. They may not also know that they can donate less. We just ran a fundraising campaign for Austin First Foundation, and somebody donated $5. Amazing. They didn't know that. They asked me, they said, would $5 be okay? I said, any amount matters. So sometimes being adaptable with your options and making sure you don't assume that they know those are opportunities. Obviously, leave them with materials that further explain these opportunities, and follow up after your initial meeting. Obviously, it's a key moment in a sales process or fundraising. I personally believe, unless it's an immediate, like, hey, let's get together quick, I think 3 to 7 days is pretty fair. Sometimes it depends on if you're going to conferences or if you're going to different places and people are traveling and dealing with things getting back home, because we all know we get inundated when we get back to work, or if we've made, say, a bunch of prospecting calls or meetings, all that adds up. So just remember, you have a lot of work to do, but those other people also have a lot of things. So timing sometimes is key. If you exchange cell numbers, I think a short text goes a long way immediately after the initial meeting. I also love a handwritten note. I love that idea from earlier. We have what's called Thank You Thursday at AO Tourism. So there's a little tidbit, little idea for you. My wife and I are going to have to write a lot of thank you cards because of a toy drive we just did, and you better believe we love doing it, and we teach our 6-year-old to do it. So handwritten thank yous, or just, hey, thank you for meeting with me. It doesn't have to be anything about sales. It can be straight up thank you for your time. No, after the initial meeting, like I said, thank them. No sales talk. They know that's coming. I just think sometimes a little bit of a slow drip is better than a, hey, because to me, it also looks like there's just transactional intention, not just, hey, let me figure out what your wants and needs are. Sometimes it's simple. And of course, they reach out to you and say, hey, what are my options? I'd love to go ahead and commit now. Sometimes it's refreshing to prospects that you don't immediately make the ask. It comes across as pushy and that the sale is the only goal you have in the situation. This has been a line that has proven to help me, and I used it one time when I was a young in college, helping sell a golf tournament that raised money for women's basketball and scholarships. Sometimes a simple statement of "Let me know how I can help you" can turn the conversation to a conversion. When I did that, I was being very structured in the options I was giving the prospective client, and I just said, "Let me know how I can help you." And he said, "Well, you can help me. This is what I would like." If I wouldn't have asked that, I wouldn't have gotten the eventual commitment and the partnership that is still lasting to this day. Be a problem solver or an opportunity creator. In sales, we all know what we're there for. We all know we're trying to get that conversion. But remember, the goal is to engage your customer in a conversation that revolves around their needs rather than the one-sided sales pitch. This approach does not only builds trust, but it presents you as a problem solver rather than just a salesperson, significantly enhancing that chance of securing the sale. Provide impact reports on your work. It's very important to provide a FAQ about what your organization does, the impact it makes. People want to know where their dollars are going. We are very intentional, Austin First Foundation, and any charity or even with AO Tourism, to be intentional of what the dollars or what the impact we are creating does for real people in real situations. So provide impact reports. It takes a lot of work, but it's very valuable. And there's always data and there's always statistics that people will want to know about. Obviously, we mentioned earlier, testimonials are very important, and those tell the true story. Sales is a never-ending situation that doesn't have boundaries when or where the opportunity presents itself, as I mentioned earlier. Yes, being authentic is a valuable piece of how I go about my work and a lot of others. However, it's not the end-all be-all. As we know, being a nice person or being authentic, eventually you've got to know your product. You've got to know how it can help them. So details of who you're prospecting or who your potential donor is, and also if they are a donor, it might change in time. They might change the way they want their dollars going or what the impact they want. Sometimes they want more tangible experiences. So not just the quantity of how many people you prospect, but it's also how many total sales you make. Details and quality matter. So some of the main things, as a lot of us know as professionals, but just a good reminder, researching your prospects' desires and personal interests is a key part of the process. I was able to secure for a charity golf tournament a bunch of media exposure because I researched the two media outlets had a sports team that loved playing in charity golf tournaments. They listed that on their biography. So you better believe I called them and said, hey, we have a great charity cause. We have an event. We'd love you to come out to give us great exposure, but also come compete against the other TV station. And they said, well, how'd you know we love playing golf? I said, I researched it. So sometimes as simple as the gentleman on the TED Talk says, Google can be your friend. Also, calling other clients, calling other partners that work with them, ask them those kind of details. And that goes into knowing the factual information about your potential new customer client allows for those organic conversations to take place. And lastly, making the ask requires you to be confident in your ability, knowledgeable about your product / cause, be passionate, very passionate. People love when the passion exudes because then that makes them want to be passionate about the cause you're passionate about. No just means not now or maybe. Be fearless. No's can lead to other opportunities, as the TED Talk says. Good timing is always key. And it also goes back to sometimes you can't get that prospective client to commit because it's not the right time. It could be days, it could be weeks, it could be years before you land that big opportunity or secure that opportunity with that client. And the desire to do best for your donor, because at the end of the day, it all flows downhill and it'll result for you and the organization you work for. So that is all I have, Brittany. And
Well, Axel has been sharing some great information in our chat. He said that 30-second videos are a unique way to vary the message, and I would agree. Recently, I've started getting voice notes, which it makes it seem a little bit more personal. And so I would agree with that. He said recapping the meeting and getting them excited for the next meeting is key. A best practice that he likes to follow is never leave the meeting without getting the next meeting or touch point on their calendar. And he suggested setting up Google Alerts for organizations or people is a great way to bring information directly to your inbox. So let Google work for you.
Love it. And I love the Google Alerts. I love the don't leave a meeting or an opportunity for a Zoom or any kind of touch point without saying, hey, when would you like to get together next? Or because then that goes back to the timing. Then that doesn't leave we all paralysis by analysis. When we start to overanalyze of, should I reach out to that client? Should I reach out to that prospect that I just met? But if you ask when you have that in-person opportunity, then you know, and you get back to what they want.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any other questions? You're welcome to unmute or type it in the chat box before we let Anthony go. Okay, well, if not, Anthony, thank you so much for a wonderful program today. Everyone, you'll be getting an email from me with a link to today's presentation and recording, a short survey, and an opportunity to sign up to be a Carey Center nonprofit affiliate. The Carey Center Nonprofit Affiliate Program currently serves over 290 nonprofits in Alabama and beyond and offers educational programming, professional development, and networking opportunities to nonprofit professionals. Carey Center nonprofit affiliates are the first to learn about upcoming programming, and membership is free. We are excited to announce that we are now offering the Carey Center Nonprofit Professional Certificate. This is an online, non-degreed certificate and offered through a partnership with the Auburn University Office of Professional Education and Merit Nonprofit Professional Development, and it provides a tailored curriculum for nonprofit professionals. Merit is an anytime, anywhere micro-learning platform that builds 6 core nonprofit proficiency areas, which include leading, learning, resource generating, planning, managing, and overseeing through 28 different learning paths. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you at one of our monthly or virtual programs that we are currently traveling the state with. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Anthony, for presenting this information and sharing it with nonprofits.
You're welcome. And I'll leave with one last quote from a famous American poet. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Absolutely. That is one of my favorites. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany, and it's a pleasure to be on with everybody.